I'm going to go ahead and get started. We may have a couple of stragglers that come in along the way, but I would like to welcome everyone this morning to our Sage 100 user group meeting here, September 2016. And I've got a couple of words of suggestion or advice or request as we go along here. Since this is a webinar format, and many of you appear to be using your computer, microphone, speaker type things, what I'm going to request is that if you've got questions along the way, use the raise your hand function and flag me in order for me to address your question. If we can't hear you, there are chat boxes or question boxes that you can type your questions in. Just for sake today, please everybody raise your hand so that I can know that you acknowledge what's going on this morning. Looking good so far. Okay. For those of you who are on phone lines, I do have your lines muted right at the moment. You may do a *6 to unmute your line in order to vocalize a question. And if we've got any problems or concerns or whatever, we can always call Sherry Simmerman at 800-232-8913 and have her lend you some assistance with getting connected to the webinar or reconnecting if you have any problems. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started this morning. As I mentioned, today is our Sage 100 user group meeting, and for any of the accounting folks who are out there, CPA folks, if you need some CPE credit, please contact Shannon Barnhart at the email address as shown and just request your CPE. She'll get certificates sent out later this week or the first part of next week. Today what we're going to cover, we'll do a real quick introduction. There are actually only 2 of us from DWD who are participating today. We've got other folks that are in a number of other places. We're going to cover what's happening with Sage 100, what's new in the current version, what's coming very soon, and then what we're expecting to see down the road. I'm going to spend some time talking about a functionality called Visual Process Flows. This is a module that is included with your Sage software, and it will go through some of the steps of what it would take to help customize your experience with Sage 100. We'll take a break, and then Chris Mendrink will come back in after the break, and he will talk about a function called Sage Alerts, and he will also then talk about some reporting function capabilities. There are a lot of tools that are out there that people may not be aware of, and so what we would like to do is just share with you what some of these tools are and how you might take advantage of them. As I mentioned, my name is Mary Hildinger, and I am also one of those recovering accountants who has come to the dark side of technology. I am a CPA. We've got another systems consultant, Brad Prather. He's located in our Indianapolis office. He's also a CPA. Chris, who you will meet later on, is one of our programmer analyst folks. He is also our Sage CRM consultant. Rick, David, Mike Roth, Bob Kohlmeyer, and Con Skembos flesh out our Sage 100 team. And I'm sure many of you have spoken with at least one of us somewhere along the way. Who we are, for those of you who aren't terribly familiar with us, DWD Technology Group is a division of Doolin, Ward & Dewald CPA firm. We've got offices in the Fort Wayne area, Marion, and in Indianapolis. And our tech team is comprised of 10 software consultants and 11 network engineers. So we can offer you hardware and software support capabilities. So the software solutions that we work with. Obviously, Sage 100, for those of you who have been around for a little while, you may remember that it was called Mass 90 or Mass 200. I also work with Sage BusinessWorks. That's a cousin program to Sage 100. Sage 50, some of you may be familiar with, formerly known as Peachtree. We have a not-for-profit group which uses the MIP fund accounting software. We also support Sage Fixed Assets, Sage HRMS, and as I mentioned, Sage CRM, which is our contact resource management software. As far as technology services in general, software, we do obviously training and setup and support. We help you with your software upgrades. We have programmers on staff who are capable of customizing your Sage 100 experience. We can do custom report writing using Crystal or FRX or Sage Intelligence, some of the solutions that Chris will talk about a little bit later on. We'll help you with data conversion and integration. If you've got third-party applications that you want data to flow between Sage 100 and that other product, we can assist with that. We can help with barcode warehouse management solutions. We can also help you with your web integration and, again, our Sage CRM as far as integrating our sales process with our software, our accounting software. From a hardware perspective, we can offer you custom IT services, managed IT services. We can assist you with your data backup and protection. We offer support and management, so we can be your IT staff in the event that you don't have the resources in-house to do that. We can help facilitate antivirus and security software implementations. And we also are certified Microsoft Office 365 providers as well. So that's a little bit about us, and where we are going to head now is what's new in Sage 100 2016. Basically, we've had a lot of progress in the software. I personally have been working with the software since about the year 2000, so I've seen it come a long way from some basic Windows. I think I was one of the first or second generation Windows versions of the software, and we're seeing that some new things are coming along the way. With regard to payroll, those of you who have the payroll function, way Sage is changing its philosophy is that they're pulling your payroll out of your normal maintenance, and your payroll subscription itself will be maintained separately. There are some features that they allow for that are in that in the payroll subscription. You actually get free technical support from Sage specifically for the payroll module. That is included in that respective maintenance. Your other maintenance, whatever your gold or your silver plan, customer care plan, that would take slide to the rest of the modules. For Sage 100 2016, they are developing a new user interface. There will be capabilities that you can actually change the font size for your desktop. You can also do some color encoding to enhance what the screen looks like for you. For your item codes, for a few versions now that you can have what they've done with Sage 100 2016 is now your miscellaneous item codes, those non-inventory items. We can actually utilize descriptions that are longer than 30 characters. We can set up customizable user settings. So my experience with the software may be different than someone else's experience. And as far as our processing is concerned, what Sage has added for this version is the ability to transfer documents in a batch into a different batch. So we all know how we get to the end of a month or the end of the year, and we're crossing over, and it's early September, and I still have some August invoices that are coming through, and I want to get those posted correctly. And I start typing up a batch, and I realize, I've got an August invoice in a September batch. Rather than having to delete and recreate that entry, we can actually physically move that document into another batch. So that should give us a little bit of help on the data entry process. Within the accounts payable module, some new things that have come. There is an electronic payment vendor option that's been added. And as far as, and that's on the aged invoice report. And in addition, we also have larger font size options for those reports. I know when I've been assisting clients that are just coming on to Sage 100, or I've just upgraded them to the newer versions, first words out of their mouth are, these reports are so small. Sage has heard us, and they have given us some capabilities to elect to see a report that's actually in larger print. Some other things in AP, we've got some new 1099 fields that are available in vendor maintenance. So we'll check those things out when we get into the software. As far as accounts receivable, we've got we can reference memos and repetitive invoice entries. So those of us that utilize that function for recurring invoices, we can actually put memos and attach those to those repetitive invoices. And like we saw on accounts payable, we've got a larger font size option for our aged invoice report as well. In the general ledger, one of the new things, again, because of some of the changes with the Sage payroll functionality, they actually have an updated integration and an activity log that ties the general ledger to the external Sage payroll services. Just real briefly to kind of explain that out, what happens is you would effectively send the payroll information to Sage payroll services. They can process it. They can do pretty much like an ADP does with payroll, full-blown processing, and then they would return back to you the general ledger information that needs to be posted. In the Library Master, for those of you who are using the paperless office capabilities to send your invoices or electronic remittance advices to your vendors, all of that now can be accessed, or we can set up the credentials for that with a password that is up to 128 characters. So they're allowing for the enhanced security. We have what are called themes in company maintenance now. So we can set up different company codes to look even more different. You know, for a few versions we have had the actual color coding on our companies, but now we can actually change up the look and the feel of some of the buttons and the control characters on there. For scheduling various tasks, we now have the ability to run reports and run visual integrator import or export jobs as scheduled activities. Previously we were pretty well limited to running journals and registers, but now we've got some more capabilities with that. In payroll, we are going to start to see a lot of changes in the payroll module over the next few years, but for current version, what they've done is they have added some enhancements to the employer maintenance area for the ACA reporting functionality. As far as the Sage 100 direct deposit service, what we have going on here is that as part of your new payroll subscription, what you can do is you can actually have Sage send your ACH transmittal file to your bank in order to facilitate your direct deposit. You still have the option to manually continue to do that yourself. That has not changed, but they've just added that capability for Sage to help kind of run interference for you and help with that transmission. And with that, they also have a new activity log that will indicate who initiated that direct deposit activity and at what time that activity was initiated. In the sales order module, we have a couple of new items that are occurring. We can allow for a default expiration date for our quotes. And we've got some new options when we promote quotes to sales orders. We've got an ability to use the default order date when we promote those quotes. And on prepayments, if we've got customers who will send us money as part of placing their order, we can now enter in a 10-character check number in that field rather than being limited to the previous 6 characters. For credit card processing functionality, some things that have come along. The Sage Payment Center, that's all part of Sage Payment Solutions. They have enhanced the statistics view where you can actually catch up recent activity, weekly activity, monthly totals. You can actually settle daily transactions from the Sage Payment Center, and you can do some more extensive searching within the Payment Center to find transactions by customer's name, by the last 4 digits of their credit card, maybe their order number, or other characteristics of the information. I'll talk about this a little bit more later on, but there is a new visual process flow that has been developed, and that covers the credit card processing tasks that are available in the software. And then there are some updated role security settings that control who is allowed to get access to the Payment Center. In Custom Office, there are a few things. Custom Office, for those of you who may not be familiar, this is the ability to change the information that displays or can be input on your data entry screens. We can add custom fields and put those on your data entry screens and have that information flow through the system. What we've got now is the ability to resize any user-defined panels. Most of the windows that we see already in the software, all of the Sage baseline screens, those have the ability to be resized. Now, if we create our own panels, we have that ability. And we can also make sure that the objects that we place on those screens will position themselves properly. Fixed assets. There are a few things here, and there's a little bit of confusion about fixed assets. Everybody sees that module on their menus, or many of you see that module on your menus, and you're like, well, I want to do my depreciation. The module that you see on your Sage 100 screen is not the fixed asset program. It facilitates the link between fixed assets and Sage 100. So keep that in the back of your head. You still have to have the separate Sage Fixed Assets program, but the Fixed Asset Link module on Sage 100 still will link that information together. And the options to link that data have been simplified. It's a lot easier now to tie those 2 programs together. And there are some updates as far as the reports and as far as the data entry, how that gets how the asset accounts get set up, that has been simplified pretty substantially. So we've talked a little bit about where we are with Sage 100 2016. I want to recap where we have been and remind a lot of you folks that may be on some older versions that we need to start considering updating our software. The grid that I am displaying here basically takes us back 5 versions, all the way to version 4.5 that was released in August of 2011. And as you can see, Sage really is not offering any software updates for many of these versions anymore. In fact, Sage 2014, only 2 versions ago, they stopped sending out product updates. And even version 2015, as of June of this year, Sage is not sending out any more service pack updates. For versions 2014 and 2015, we still can get quick hot fixes to those programs. Those would be just little single programs for very, very specific instances of things that might not be working right. But even after December of this year, version 2014 will no longer get any software update programs published. As far as phone support, Sage, after the end of this month, will stop supporting version 2013 if you call them for technical support. I will caveat that we will support you on whatever version you're currently working to the best of our ability for as long as we can, but if we do run into a situation where it is beyond our control or beyond our ability to help you, realize that we can't get you help if you are on an older version. And with all that being said, just a few nudges, I guess, in everyone's direction to help you with why you might want to stay current with your maintenance plan and keep your software updated. Windows 10 is coming out. Most of you probably already have that operating system installed. Sage 100, 2015, and 2016 are the only versions that Sage will say are compatible with Windows 10. And I think Sage 2015, you have to be on a specific release as well. Product updates, as I said on the previous slide, only Sage 100, 2016 is sending out product updates. If you are using direct deposit for your payroll in order to utilize the Sage direct deposit service functionality, you need to be on product update 4 of Sage 100, 2015, or you have to be on a higher version for that to all work correctly. And if you're using your paperless office and you want to have a more secure password, you have to be on 2016 in order to take advantage of that. I'm going to open up for some questions right now, and if you would be so kind, what you can do is either type in a question if you've got it, or if you want to raise your hand. If I've got you on a regular phone line, I will absolutely open up your line. Otherwise, I'll just reread your question and throw out what answers we can. Everybody doing okay so far? Have we all had enough coffee this morning? Because I know I haven't. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move along here a little bit. And kind of a segue here before I get rolling into the visual process flows. I want to talk a little bit about what's coming, a few more things that are coming with Sage 100, and what is Sage 100C? Oh, I've got somebody, forgive me, I've got somebody who's got a question here. Let me roll back to this question here. I've got one of you is commenting, we're using Sage 100 2014. Should we be updating to 2015? Actually, I would say we would probably want to go ahead and just update you to the latest and greatest. You do not have to do your upgrades incrementally. You may skip over versions if you're a version or two behind. So I would say let's go ahead and we can talk about when a convenient time might be to help facilitate that with you. All right, and thank you. What is Sage 100C? Some of you probably have started seeing some literature from Sage and even from us talking about this. Sage 100C is a deluxe version of Sage 100. From a user's perspective, you will notice some additional capabilities that are available. Basically a more updated user interface and more ability to customize and personalize how that software looks. As far as how Sage offers that to us as the end users, it is taken care of as a subscription plan maintenance agreement with Sage. And what that means is right now many of you, especially if you've been on the product for a while, have what is called a perpetual license. So you have purchased the software, and it is up to you whether you want to continue your maintenance or not. And if you choose not to continue your maintenance, you don't get any more upgrades, but your software is still all well and good. From a subscription plan perspective, and we see this with other larger software like our Microsoft Office 365 material, subscription plan, it basically will work as long as you continue to pay the lease on it, if you will. And with that, for people who are new or who are buying into the software, they are bundling the software in different kinds of groups. There is an essentials group, and I needed to correct a slide, and I apologize. There's an advanced group, which includes the GLARP Bankrec core modules. The advanced will include all of the above plus sales order, purchase order, and inventory. And then there's a complete version that is a bundle of all of the above plus other, I call them a la carte options, such as job costing, work order, you know, RMA, the return materials authorization, you know, so a number of other modules that might be out there that are not necessarily your typical ones. The subscription plans look at the number of users that you have, and they base your maintenance on that. So if you look around at the rotating wheel, you can kind of see how the Sage 100C builds out with its capabilities based on core functionality and the additional add-ons for your specific experiences. For those of you who are on current maintenance plans and you want to take advantage of some of the new features, and a lot of that's some of the customization and some of the development that's out there that Sage will only make available to their 100C clients, we can switch you over, we can help you switch over to the 100C subscription plan, and basically it's at no additional cost. If we get past the end of this month, Sage does have a conversion fee that they tack on to your maintenance, but right now they are in a position where they are not charging that additional fee. However, keep in mind, if you switch over to that subscription plan from your traditional maintenance plan, and you neglect to pay your fees, your software will become read-only. So Sage will know by your registration keys and by whether or not your maintenance is current. They'll know whether or not you can continue to use the software legally because it's a lease agreement. What's coming? We've talked about where we are. We're going to kind of look at what is expected to happen here over the next few minutes, or few months anyway, and version 2017. I tongue-in-cheek say that this is coming in October of 2016. We kind of know most software developers don't always hit their target dates as they would like to think that they do, but to the best of our knowledge, this is what Sage is planning. Version 2017 is going to include what's called multi-bin warehousing. And for those of you who may not be familiar with that, that is basically warehouses within warehouses. Right now, you can only have one particular bin location within a warehouse for a given item. But with the multi-bin warehousing, you can actually now indicate multiple bin locations for an item within a single warehouse. We also will have some capabilities regarding electronic invoicing. Sage CRM will have some updates thrown out there. Sage Payment Solutions, they are intending to allow for ACH receipts. So if your if your customers are paying you, then you can actually get that information transmitted to you electronically, and you can record the receipt of payment rather than having to manually key in how those payments have been received. Sage Exchange, that's all part of the credit card processing and the credit card validation. That will have some updates as well. And then Sage 100 2017 is expected to be compatible with Windows and SQL Server operating systems version 2016. Beyond that, about 4 months out or so from there, they are expecting to include what's called the global search function. And we're kind of excited about this because what we know this to be, or what we are expecting this to be, is that if you type in anything into the global search field, the software will be able to go out and look for references all throughout. So if I type in an invoice number, 12345, then the global search will go look through all places where invoice number 12345 might be. I might find it in accounts payable. I might find it in accounts receivable. So we can look a lot more easily for things with not necessarily as much information. Office 365 mobile sales, that's going to be something that will be available in Service Release 1 of version 2017. Payroll 2.0. For those of you who have been around for a while, especially when we started the transition from version 3.7 into version 4X and subsequently into the 2013, 14, 15, 16 series, Payroll 2.0 is basically going to put us up on what I like to call the new business framework. So it's going to enhance the look and the feel of the payroll data entry screens. It's going to be a little bit more modernized. It's going to be a more grid-based data entry. So for those of you who are running payroll, you may see some of these new things coming with Service Release 1. And another new feature that they're expecting to implement is an in-product chat that you can actually connect directly with Sage Tech Support. So if your customer care plan or your payroll subscription, you need technical support and you want to go straight to Sage, you can actually do an online chat right with them. Service Release 2 expected out second to third quarter of next year. Some enhancements to the Office 365 as it relates to paperless Office. There's an accounts payable automation that is expected to be coming out. And then job cost and work order, for those of you who might be using those modules, those are going to become modernized and brought up to this new business framework like payroll will have already done. And then for version 2018 and beyond, some things that we're expecting to see are document management integration capabilities. Not 100% sure what this could be, but what we are thinking is maybe I've got a vendor's invoice that I want to scan in. So I can scan that in, document management will read the information on the invoice, and it will queue up the data entry for invoice data entry, and it will store an electronic copy of that invoice to the vendor's record. So we're going to start to see more integration and maybe a little bit less hands-on as far as managing paper and typing in data entry. There will be cloud backup solutions that are expected to be available. Bank statement automation. Some of you might already be using the bank reconciliation functionality where I can read in my check information from a file from my bank. I'm expecting this to be a lot more robust and probably even pick up the deposit information as well. And as far as customer resource management, Sage CRM, it's going to be a much more seamless integration with Sage CRM, and we expect a fully implemented upgrade of the payroll to the new platform. So that's kind of where we are and where we are expecting to go with Sage 100. I'm going to go ahead and throw out, anybody have any questions at the moment? Any comments or anything? Okay, looks like everybody's doing all right. I'm going to go ahead and keep rolling here. And I am going to walk into the module called Visual Process Flows. And the goal behind this is an enhancement to Sage in order to help customize how the users can access their regular tasks. What we're going to do here is I'm going to go through a few slides of information, and then I'm actually going to review with you how we can set up some customized visual process flows. So a little bit of history. Back at version 2013, version 2014, this is the introduction of visual process flows with Sage 100. And some areas that Sage had already elected to start with included the sales process, the customer billing process, some inventory functions, some purchase order functionality, and some vendor functions as far as creating invoices and creating the payments. And as you notice on the little diagram on the right-hand side here, you can see what is the visual process flow. Basically what we've got is the sequence of steps and graphical depictions, so that if I click on something, if I click on the words enter order, if I click on the little dot that is underneath enter order, I am going to get the sales order data entry screen to pop up. And what's really nice about this is, you know, these are very well laid out, but maybe my job description is a little bit different, that I want to shake it up and I need 2 or 3 or 4 different things that are not just exclusively sales order entry and invoicing. So what we will have the ability to do is we'll be able to customize this screen, and we'll be able to put on the things that are pertinent to me and my team. And so I don't have to always remember, okay, well, if I'm doing my vendor invoicing, then I want to go to accounts payable main, invoice data entry, but I also need to be able to do my customer cash receipts, and that's under AR main cash receipts entry, okay? Sometimes that gets overwhelming trying to remember, especially if you're a fairly new user to the software. So we're going to have these abilities to set up specific tasks for ourselves. So 2013, 2014, the introduction of visual process flows. With versions 2015 and 2016, we can see some enhancements that have been made, and we've got some new areas that have been added. So under if you've got Sage 100 2015, you've actually got manufacturing tasks, period end processing tasks, and also the chart of accounts functionality, how to create accounts. Those process flows have been developed and already added to your menus. And those of you on 2016, you will now see credit card processing tasks that have been added to your menus. As I've mentioned, you can work with the predefined visual process flows, or we can actually take one of those existing templates and we can customize it ourselves to have it reflect the tasks that we want to perform. Why would you want to do this? Well, I want to lay out common tasks and have them easily accessible. You know, again, I don't want to go hunting and pecking for something when I'm not familiar, or I just, you know, am actually lazy. I don't want to go digging for something. How am I going to do this? Well, I want to kind of picture what makes the most sense for me. You know, anytime you folks ask us to write reports or anything like that, I always ask you for a sketch. You know, show me what you think this should look like, because in my head it may look one way, but that's not what you're expecting. So sketch it out so that you have an idea of what you're going to try to do, and it'll make it a lot easier to facilitate that. And then basically it's making the links. It's putting the label or the dot or whatever and giving it the functionality behind it. And we can do that with any task from any Sage module. So I'm not limited to just one module on my visual process flow. Another thing with the visual process flows is that for those of you who might be familiar with the old My Tasks area, you may recall that as we would do upgrades over the years, you would always have to, consider recreating some of the My Tasks or your customized buttons that you would drag up to your excuse me, to your top bars at the top of the software. Those custom buttons don't come across. Visual process flows are upgradable, and they will flow through when you move from one version to the next. So in my example this morning, what we're going to do here is we're going to take some functions from our AP module and our sales order module and our AR module. I'm kind of a Jill of all trades, and I need to be able to do a lot of different things, so I want to have all of my tasks right in front of me. So we'll kind of keep that in the back of our heads. You all have paper copies, or you should have or paper or electronic copies of today's presentation. As I flip over to the software, I'm not going to be able to reference back to this super easily. But as far as visualizing, I'm going to take an existing layout, and I want to move some things around. You can see I'm going to relabel it because it's not just accounts payable functions anymore. I'm going to move some of the features and reorient and get rid of and add some things so that I can make this my own. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to head on into Visual Process Flows. And as you can see here, we've got the different areas, the sales, the billing, inventory, purchases, and so on. These are all the predefined flows that exist with your software, depending on what version you're on, of course. But in order to create and modify, we're going to walk through the Visual Process Flows Manager. And if I don't already have a visual process flow defined, a custom one defined that I've made, then it's going to take me immediately into a wizard, and it's going to ask me for some information. So I want to give it a short name, just to kind of give it a label. I can give it a more definitive description. And then I can ask the software to link it to whatever module that I want to commonly access this information from. So since the majority of this is AP related, I'm probably going to go ahead and link it to the AP module, even though I'm going to interrelate other modules on this particular flow. I also get the question, do I want to allow other users to modify this flow? And if I turn it on, yep, others can. If I turn it off, no, nobody else can modify it but me. So from this existing list, I can see the different templates that are already defined, and I can use one of these as my baseline. Unfortunately, they're not all perfect, right? They're just core functions, very, very, very specifically related to one area. I need more stuff, because I do more things. So I'm going to go ahead and take my AP invoice and payment function, because I know that's going to have my vendor invoice data entry, it's going to have my check writing functionality, but I'm going to tweak it up a little bit more to make it mine. I'm going to also assign which role or roles has access to this visual process flow. Okay? From a security perspective, if you have users that have access to the visual process flow, but there still might be tasks on here to which they are not authorized, they still won't get into them. So don't fear for that. Each individual task is still controlled beyond the control of the view of the visual process flow itself. So I'm going to create a custom process flow called Mary Tasks, and I'm going to go ahead and get in and start working on this. And what we see are a number of control panels here. So I'm going to scoot some things out of my way so I can really get a good look at what's going on. And as you can see, this area right here is reflective of the elements that comprise the process flow. I've got text elements, I've got some graphical elements, I've got some text labels, I've got some more text boxes. All of these things can have some functionality behind them depending on how we get to that information. So what I want to do, first of all, and I'm going to ask you to go back and reference your documentation, but you kind of get back to the picture where I had sketched out the layout. And you can see that I'm actually just modifying what we're currently looking at. So I can customize the titles here. I can move things around, so I'm going to actually grab all of this stuff and I just click it and I can just actually drag to reposition the things. And a couple of my labels got grabbed, but I don't really want them anyway, so I'm just going to actually remove some of this stuff. And you can see all I'm doing is just dragging and clicking. And I'm using my menu here to cut, paste, copy, whatever I might need to do. Okay, so I've got a lot of my AP functions that are already here. Now, I need to add some functionality for my sales order. I need to be able to put in sales order data entry. I need to be able to put in my sales order invoice data entry. Well, all right, I think the easiest way I'm going to do this is I'm going to just steal some of these elements. And so I'll just highlight. Grab them just right here. I'm going to highlight, and so you can tell I've got a couple of labels and a couple of dots. I'm just going to copy these, and I'm going to just paste them and put them in another area here. I've got lines that I can maneuver. I've got labels that I can change. But I also need to make sure that these things access the correct functionality. And how do I do that? I will highlight an item, and then I'm going to actually come over and we're going to look at the links. And if you notice when I hover over the link, you will see a lot of numbers that underlie each of the elements, either a label or a button. And what this is the way that Visual Process Flows goes back and talks to the specific tasks within Sage 100. So I know that I want my sales order button here. I want it to actually kick off the sales order data entry task. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to come link, and then I actually need to go in and get to the correct module. So I still need to know where this stuff comes from, but once I set it, then I'm pretty well done. I need to know that I'm going into the main module of the sales order, or the main folder of the sales order module, and I want this to relate to sales order entry. So what I'm doing is I'm tying this label through a link to this specific functionality. And then I want to repeat that process for the dot underneath it because I want the user to be able to click on either the dot or the label. So again, I'll just go ahead and go to the sales order module, the main menu, and into sales order entry. So let's go take a look at how this actually will behave. So I'm going to save this process flow. You can see I've got my different little tasks out here, and on this particular task, if I click it, it actually takes me into accounts payable because it is going to be my accounts payable invoice data entry function. That is how this particular element got linked. Okay. However, I copied the buttons, but I've changed the links now. So when I click on either the button or the label, you can see that I'm actually headed for the sales order module, and this is actually going to open up my sales order data entry. So as you can see, I'm giving myself an easier graphical interface for all of the things that I commonly do, and I don't have to go hunting and pecking through all my modules to figure out where this function is. Okay, let's go back and let's clean up a little bit more, and let's do a couple more things. So I'm going to go back into my Process Flows Manager, and we're going to see that I have a defined process flow now. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that, and I want to go into the actual designer, and that's going to take me right back to where we were. And of course I got to move all my little goodies over here. Get these guys out of my way. I do have to admit, it is helpful to have a larger screen in order to do this so that you can spread things out a little bit better. So let's kind of scoot this stuff over. And again, I want to link this to my invoice data entry functionality. So I can actually do my link. And of course, if this was shipping data entry, then you would go ahead and link to that task. So I will admit it will take a little bit of development to get this rolling, but once you have it, it is really, really, really easy to deal with. Okay, so I've got my sales order invoice functionality. I want to throw on my cash receipts functionality, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it on here. And again, just kind of scooch it over. And I want to make sure that I get this tied to the right task. So under accounts receivable now, I want to do cash receipts entry. And I want this button to correspond as well. Okay, this is why drawing it out is also very helpful, because it will help you get things where you want them fairly quickly. A couple other things I want to share with you about designing how this looks. You noticed that this text box shows up while I'm in the edit mode, but when I am actually in the functional mode, that text box doesn't appear until I hover over my little information dot. Those things are controlled fairly easily by just assigning actions to a particular button or label or what have you. So if I would click on this and I would go into my actions, you're going to see numbers. Okay, you see all these different little reference numbers here. These are all individual elements, and what this tells me is that number 6, okay, that little button that I had up there, I want to show as a tooltip, and I want to show numbers 5 and 7 when I access that. So when I hover over number 6, show box number 7, or if I had a box number 5 out here, show it as a tooltip. Some other actions that we have that work pretty well are the show hide. So again, if I hover over or I click on something, I can say, depending on what thing I click on, then I will hide, or when I click on it again, I'll unhide it, and whatever I click on, so like if I go to number 21 here, I'm going to see if I can get this to work. Sometimes it amuses me and sometimes it doesn't. I might want to hide number 1 or number 2. So when I get out of the process flow, by clicking that button, I can now hide or display that extra functionality. So that can also keep the window cleaner for the person who's using it. I got one other fun little thing I want to share with you on the visual process flows, because a lot of times if you've got somebody maybe in your purchasing department and they are frequently visiting a vendor's website and they always want to get quick information about the catalog or whatever, or they want to facilitate placing an order. Another link type that you can have is actually to a website. So I'm going to add a new button down here, and I'm going to actually take this button here and I'm going to give it a label. And I'm going to give it my vendor's website name. And what I want to do with this is I want to be able to link to a URL. Now you'll notice there are a number of other choices that you might be able to link. Predominantly we're going to do ERP function or URL. Those are the two major things that work with this tool that works with Sage 100. This whole development tool actually works with other softwares, which is why these other options are available. But the ones that we are most specifically capable of using are the URLs and the functions. And all I'm going to do here is type in the full website address, and I'm going to also link it here too, just to keep them consistent. And then when I actually click on this button, Sage is actually a web browser, and it will take you out to the website that you have linked. So there's a little bit of work to be done, but there's a lot to gain by setting up some of these visual process flows for your staff. We are more than happy to help you with that, or at least get you started, and then you can maybe designate somebody in-house who can maintain those for you or whatever. But the whole beauty behind this then is that process flow, that user can access that, and this is how they start their day. This is the functionality that they will work in, so they don't have to worry about where is that thing that I need to do, how do I get to it. We can lay this out in the order that they need to see it so that they remember to process all the steps. You can make this to be able to do. Yeah, I'm going to open up questions. Does anybody have anything they would like to ask? You can either raise your hand or you can type into the questions box or into the chat box, whatever is convenient for you. If we don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and offer up a little bit of a break. I have just after 10 o'clock Eastern, so let's say we'll reconvene here in about 15 minutes, so right about 10:15, 10:16. If you've got questions along the way, feel free to shoot them to me and we can address them. Otherwise, when we come back from break, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Mendrink, and I'm going to let him take us home.
Okay, it's 15 after 10. Let's go ahead and get started with our next topic. First, I want to introduce myself. My name is Chris Mengerink. I've been with DWD Technology Group for just over 6 years now. Here at DWD, I handle custom programming with relation to Sage 100, either Provide X or scripting with Sage 100 to sometimes make the system do things it won't do out of the box that clients may need. I also work on building integrations. Me and my team have integrations that we've written for either third-party websites or other different systems that are outside of the Sage 100, but we need the data to get in on some sort of regularly scheduled process. I also do a lot of business intelligence reporting, not so much for me personally on the financial report writing. I do a lot of the sales, purchasing, performance report analytics for a number of clients. And sometimes they'll come to us with a pretty complex, say, inventory velocity report they need. It's me and my team that will work together to make that report happen for them on different platforms. Today we're going to start with looking at Sage Alerts and Workflow. Sage Alerts and Workflow is a third-party Sage-provided approved add-on. I know that sounds very confusing, but basically Sage Alerts and Workflow, which used to be known as Knowledge Sync, is Sage's preferred and branded alert system for the ERP system. Its sole purpose is to allow us to monitor the Sage 100 database. We can be monitoring it for many different things. We really can define how we're monitoring and what we're monitoring for. We also can send out or generate crystal reports on a schedule. Okay, so you may have a sales manager who wants a report every Monday morning in his email box. That's a PDF that shows him a breakdown of sales by his salespeople with the customers that are purchasing, some totals, etc. You may be an AP. You may want to know what invoices were posted last week, right? Or you may want to know what purchase orders do we have scheduled or required that we feel should be coming in so that we can be aware of those. We can set up basically any type of report on a schedule with this tool and send it to a single person, to multiple people, okay? We have a lot of different options when it comes to how we alert people of different events. Okay, we can do email like we've just talked about, faxing, and yes, there are some places out there that still do faxing. Text, so one of our clients, we set up Sage Alerts and Workflow, and it texts a message to the head of the accounts payable division every time a PO that's created that's more than $10,000. It'll send them a text message to alert them. Okay, so we can also use pagers if those are still out there, instant message, and of course Twitter as well. When it comes to the Sage Alerts and Workflow, when you purchase it from Sage, you can download some basic out-of-the-box alerts, okay? As an example, open invoices overdue for payment, high balance customers, okay? It'll allow you to alert your employees of these different scenarios, and there's other ones out there as well, okay? But the whole idea of Sage Alerts and Workflow is there's something that needs to be triggered when an event happens in your workflow, your business process throughout the day. As another example, we have a client who, for every order that gets changed from hold to open, okay, that alerts the shipping department that they have a new order that needs picked. It has moved from hold to open. They now know, hey, let's go pick that order. Okay. Yes, they could look it up in Sage 100. They could see what orders are out there, etc. But they found it much more advantageous for their individual in the warehouse who manages it to get a text message every time an order converts from from hold to open. He now knows, hey, we got another order out there to get picking on. Okay. You can do it against the different modules you have, so it's not like you're stuck with sales or AP or anything like that. You can do it against payroll, okay, and like one of them, their employees with negative sick time. We have another client who uses it to alert them of employees' hire date as it comes around every year, their anniversary date, okay. So once again, just the idea is that we can really use it to alert us on anything in the system. We're going to go ahead and go into Sage Alerts and Workflow so you can kind of see it in action. I'm going to show you an alert I have set up, and we can just kind of talk through the process of setting up that alert. Go ahead and minimize that. So Sage Alerts and Workflows has a few pieces, but the key piece after you install it is the Event Manager. Okay, the Event Manager helps us know all the different connections we have set up to Knowledge Sync. And why that's important is if you have multiple company codes, you would need a connector for each company code. Okay, so if I have A, B, C, and X, Y, Z as my two company codes, I would end up having multiple connections in here, one for each company code. Okay, so we have to first define our connection. Okay, and I have a connection up here I call 2016 ABC. Okay, once I have that connection defined to my Sage 100, I can come in and set up a query. And a query is nothing more than a question to our accounting system. Okay, so here what I'm going to show you today is the credit limit being changed on a customer record. We are going to alert someone that a credit limit has been changed. You could alert the salesperson, you could alert the head of the sales manager, you could alert the CEO. Maybe customers aren't supposed to have their credit limit changed, so you can use this as a way to track people and actually, I mean, it sounds bad, but catch someone changing credit limits that shouldn't be. Okay, so it once again, it's an alerting system, so we can use it many different ways. I'm going to go ahead and go into my credit limit change alert query that I'm setting up. And let's talk about the different tabs on here and kind of what they mean. Obviously, a description is, this is the event or the query that I am writing. What am I after? And I'm making a statement saying that I'm after a credit limit change. Okay. I have to know which table to pull the information from. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't really know the tables at all. And that's fine. It's a learning process. We are happy to assist you in learning which tables to use, or I mean, we do set this up for clients all the way through. There are some clients that really want to learn it so they can make and define their own queries and events. So every table has different information in it. So for example, in this one, I'm after the AR customer table because I am targeting customer related information. Okay. If I was after something that changed on a vendor, then I know that I would look through this list and I would find my AP vendor table. Okay. I can add that table and start working with it. But today we're going to focus on the AR customer table. We're going to go to the links tab next. And the link is important when you have to link two tables together. And you say, well, why would I need to do that? Well, if I needed to know something about the customer, but I was targeting sales order information, okay, I would need to find my sales order table and link it to my AR customer table. Okay, so if I have a link I need to define, I can add that table link. I can say the customer number field in my customer table is a link to the customer number field in my sales order table. So you can define that link. Okay. And then we have a columns tab. What columns do we want our query to work with as we go through the process of creating it? Every column in AR customer is listed here. How do I know what columns I want? There's always certain ones, hence we're looking for a credit limit change here. Okay, so we know we're probably going to want the division number, the customer number, their name, and what the credit limit is. Okay, so as you can see down here, we have added those fields to the grid. Okay, the unique key being the customer, division number, customer name, credit limit. Okay. Sorting. Okay, so if you think of, I exported all this information into Excel, how do I want it sorted? This is helping us understand how to sort stuff. We can define that sorting. Maybe I want to add that column and sort by customer name. Okay, so if I was to export a big Excel list of something, that would be what sorts it. Okay. In this case, we're after an alert. We don't need to sort anything here. Okay. Filters, do I need to filter something out? No, I do not right now. Once again, another filter. The statement that is going to be ran against the data. Okay, if you're familiar or comfortable with SQL, you can actually change this as needed. And then you click preview to see the data in your system. Okay, so it's kind of your way to check that you picked the right table, you selected the columns you need, and you can see the result. I have a unique key, which notice it's the same as the customer number with division, because that is a unique identifier for a customer. Their name and their current credit limit. I can see that information. Okay. I would save and close, thus defining my basic query. I'm going to go ahead and say no, because I know mine's already set up. And then the next step to that process is an event. I need to create an event that every so many minutes it checks Sage 100 and says, hey, has a credit limit changed? Okay. Not sure what just happened there. So I'm going to go into my events, and I'm going to go into my credit limit change. Okay, so now I've got an event, customer credit limit change. Okay, I'm using the query that I just built in query definition to pull the credit limit. Okay. Now I have to say, and you'll notice there's a lot of tabs going on here. Now I get a lot of options. One is I can run a report at the same time when something happens. Another option is files. I can add a file. I can say that I need to add this to the alert if I was sending an email. Okay. Copy. Okay, so I can copy things across into different folders. I can generate an email, and that's really what I'm after, is when this query has an event, a credit limit change, I am going to send an email out to myself, in this case, to alert me of that change. Okay, so up here is the fields I defined in the query, okay, along with a few others, current date, time, stuff like that. But notice it's got the key, the credit limit, the customer number, the customer name, and there's this last value for the credit limit. I put a subject line in for my email. And then down here, I put in the text I want. And a lot of people look at this and think, oh my gosh, look, there's HTML in there. You don't always have to use HTML, okay? But I really wanted to format mine out nicely, okay? So I built it with a little HTML, very basic, right? Paragraph, paragraph, some information. I have a field in here that's referencing one of my fields up here, okay? So I'm merging that information in. Same with customer name, it's coming in down here. What the credit limit was, the last value, and what the credit limit is, okay? And then it will send out the email accordingly. Once again, like we said, we can fax it if we needed to. We can send a page alert, instant message, etc. Okay? All these different options. You can notice that I can create a file, I can send a tweet. It's a lot of different actions. But what we're after today is just a basic email every time someone changes their credit limit. The subscribers. So what that is, if I go over here, is in my alert system, I can define the subscribers that exist, people that should receive alerts. And then I can add and remove those individuals. Okay, so right now this alert is going to me and Brad Prather. Okay, I can click on Brad and remove him from the list. Okay, I can uncheck this and say he doesn't get it. I can remove all the subscribers and say I don't like any of you. Now let's add somebody different. Okay, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go ahead and just add myself in. So we can control who receives it and then how they receive it. Do they receive a copy of a report, of a file? How do they receive this alert? Okay, mine is set up via email. When does it happen? Okay, so I can come into the schedule tab and say I want this event to run every so many minutes. Okay, right now it's set up for every 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and set it up for 1 because I want it to send it real quick. Okay, so now I've got 1 minute. Every 1 minute, the system will check to see if a credit limit has changed. Okay, if I go to the track tab, okay, you can actually see a history of it being triggered. You can see where I tested it the other day. Okay, so this builds our event, the event of monitoring that query, and when there is a change, we are going to alert ourselves. Okay, so I would save this event. This event now exists in my Sage Alerts and workflow. So, unbeknownst to Mary, she's in the system. She comes into it, and she goes into customer maintenance under accounts receivable. Accounts receivable, customer maintenance. And she's looking at 3G Homes, and they want to buy a yacht from us. And so she's like, well, let's make sure they have enough credit to do that. That'll give me a nice bonus. And hits accept. In the background, Sage Alerts and Workflow, who is monitoring Sage 100, will kick off an event after its next check and should send an email, if the demo gods are nice to me, saying that that particular customer's credit limit was changed. Okay. While we wait for that email to kick off, because I did not set it to let's touch on, oh, no, that wasn't one, isn't it? let's touch on scheduled reports while we wait for the email to come. So within your connection, you can actually schedule reports. So I can pick a report. Oh, hang on. I believe it just entered my email box. Let's see if it shows up in the upper right here in a moment. And there it is. Let me go ahead and open it. So this alert just informed me that the credit limit was changed from $150,000 to $350,000. Okay. Now I can go in and call the customer or call Mary or really determine if that was a valid change that should happen. And if not, maybe I call Guido and have him re-educate Mary. Okay. So that's the idea of these alerts. It can be written against any kind of data that we capture. It is a great tool for alerting us. Okay, so back to reports. So this is the scenario that we talked about, that you have a sales manager on a Monday morning that wants a report sent to him. You can use this tool to go in and look at or create reports or files from reports. So I can go in to the reports tab and I can say, here's the report that I want to send. I want to output it as PDF. I want to send an email. Here's the body of the email with the subject line. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and go over to actions. Okay, we're not going to create a file because the report is going to generate a PDF. Okay, we can go to different formats here. Okay, Excel, comma delimited, tab, PDF. Okay, and we're going to see who it's going to get sent to. So if I was to have this report run, Brad is receiving a copy of this report with the email on a schedule. What is that schedule? Daily at 5 p.m. So again, you can edit the schedule. You can send a report at any moment in time. Okay, you choose when that's going to happen. Okay. Now, some people say, okay, that's great, I can do this, but how do I know it's working? Yes, obviously if you don't get any emails and it doesn't change, that's a way, but Sage Alerts and Workflows has an event manager, but also has this thing called administration. And inside of administration, you can come in and you can actually look at different statuses of your system. So I can see, hey, is my automation part working? It all shows that it's running except for my page and fax server. Okay, so I don't have faxing set up. I can come into corrective action and actually look at email delivery errors. So I can see that I had an email delivery error for the demo reports that ran when it tried to send at 5 o'clock. Okay, there was something wrong. It was most likely from yesterday when it was sitting on my computer and it ran on its own. But I can drill into these different errors and hopefully troubleshoot why they're happening. Okay, I can also come in here and set up my email accounts. Okay, so here's where the administrative tool comes in creating the email account, instant messaging, Twitter. You're really setting up some of the basic information that Sage Alerts and Workflow will use. Okay. All right, so that is the basics, the Sage Alerts and Workflow 101. Does anyone have any questions regarding Sage Alerts and Workflow? Like Mary had mentioned, you can raise your hand, you can type in the chat window, etc. Mary, you may have to help me. If you see anything, please let me know. Okay, so let's go ahead and hop over to the next topic, our reports. We love them and we hate them, and that's a pretty true statement. So reports have a lot of different names nowadays, okay? We've seen all kinds of catchwords: intelligence, management information, analytics, forecasting, dashboards, cubes, if you're around SQL enough. All these words come down to reporting. We're looking for information that we can take action on, okay, or that allows us to see what may happen down the road, okay? So when you see these different words out there, just know it's always basically the same thing. And when we have a ERP system such as Sage 100, we're collecting a lot of data. Okay, every single order that goes out, we have their customers, their address information, and phone numbers, and what they're buying, and from what product line, and the money they're spending, and potentially the gross profit per item. There's all kinds of information out there. Okay, and one of the things that a lot of companies struggle with is how do we use that information to our advantage, and what are the different resources that we have to get the information out of Sage 100. Okay, and that's really what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to show you a couple things that we are working on and things that we've done for clients over the past couple years. Let's talk about reports, though, and how complex they can be. I had found this nice graph, and I thought, this perfectly represents reporting. Because if we start down in the lower left corner reporting what happened, it's very easy for us to create you a report that shows you invoice sales last week. Okay, that's simple. I mean, it's what happened. It's in there. The system has captured it. We're just generating that report. Okay, and once we kind of start crawling up this into, let's say, analysis, why did it happen? Okay, then we start getting into more detail. You notice how the chart just says the business value keeps creeping up, the complexity keeps creeping up, okay? So each level as we come out here, okay, a little more complex, and that's is where like Knowledge Sync comes in, is it's sitting out here in the monitoring area, right? It's monitoring, my apologies, your Sage 100 system, and it's sending information out based on the information that's getting put in, okay? And then from there, you could be sending automated reports of what happened, okay? And then your analysis of those reports, or analysis of maybe a little more complex report, it kind of helps you understand maybe why it happened, right? So it's a vendor performance report. Why are we running out of stock on this item? Oh, look, well, our required date was July 1st, and the vendor didn't get it to us till September 1st, okay? So we're analyzing that vendor's performance and realizing it's not so good, so we probably need to take some kind of corrective action. Can we source it from somewhere else, etc., okay? And then prediction, the hardest part of all reporting, and really the part that if you can dial it in is the most valuable to your company, okay? So inventory velocity report is an example. I have a client who we've written one for, and it really gives them a breakdown based on their understandings. We calculate a turnover rate. We calculate, based on the number of days in a month they're shipping and how many they're shipping per day. What do we think we're going to have in 30, 60, 90, etc. So we merge all this information together and we put it on a report so they can review it, and it gives them an idea of what they may need to order. There's other tools out there. You can look into Sage Inventory Advisor. Okay, it's basically a bolt-on. It's a cloud-based product. We talked about it last year at our user groups. It is in the prediction world. It really tries to help you understand where your inventory is, where it's going, and where you need to keep it going forward. Okay, what's our safety stock? You can get in there and actually look and find what's the safety stock of an item is, and you can see on a chart, you know, your inventory going down towards that safety stock, and it gives you a reorder point, and then it will help you generate purchase orders off of this information. Okay, it's in that predictive analytics area of this chart. But if we step back and say, where do we start? A lot of companies, when they first implement an ERP system, they're really looking for just the basics, or maybe just a little bit more than that, because they now know that they're capturing more information than they ever did on their Excel spreadsheets or whatever. So the first things we always tell a company is to find someone who is going to be the person that really helps organize the reporting at the company, because it can get very out of hand if no one does that. I mean, we have a client that I believe they have about 60 custom reports and accounts receivable. I would imagine some of those are very close to the others. It was just no one had a good understanding of what was there and really planned it out well. So their IT that we had shown how to write custom crystal reports, et cetera, really overdid it. Okay. So what we've tried to lay out here is what we would do to start. We'd come in and we're going to say, okay, who's the head of the sales, the purchasing, the inventory, manufacturing operations, et cetera. And then we're going to ask them, what is a report that is vital to you? And I've kind of laid out 4 of them here based on that role above of things that someone may want. Okay. We want that information so that we can then turn around and go, okay, now that you've told us you want a report that shows this information, now we want you to open an Excel or Word document, grab a piece of paper, grab a napkin, whatever it is, and write down or lay out what you want the report to look like and the data to be on it. And Mary touched on this, and I always try to drill this home because it is all too common, it seems like, that we get a report request, we write the report, Mary writes it, I write, whoever writes it, and then we go back to them and say, here you go, there's all the data that you requested. And then they were like, well, we want this over here, and we need that over there, and we spend the same amount of time we did making that report just moving and realigning and redoing things. Okay, so we really try to push to people that, hey, the more you can define that report for us, the less time it takes us, the less issues we have implementing and getting that report into the system. Okay, so that's a big request that not only us, I mean, as a group that works with you guys will help you with this, but even as a company, you should try to do this with any performance analytics you're trying to capture or reports you want to generate just internally. Really sit down and write it out and think about what it is that you're after and the different points, and then look at that report, go back into your accounting system or your CRM system and say, are we capturing that information that we want to see on this report? Because sometimes you're not. Okay, sometimes you have items that are in a product line, but maybe your product lines are not the only grouping that you really need, right? There could be a subgroup under the product line. So I may have a product line like Under Armour and then a subgroup under it called shirts. Well, I made my product line Under Armour, I need to do something to break out my shirts, pants, shoes, knee pads, different things like that. And I don't want to create another product line. So what do I need to do? Well, you could put a drop down on your inventory item maintenance screen so that it says this is a t-shirt, this is a pair of pants, this is shoes, right? You can categorize that specific item, thus allowing us to make and generate that final report that really breaks out maybe the sales or stock for those different things. Okay. And the fourth question that is really the hardest one is, which technology do I use? Because there are a lot of different ways to pull data out of the accounting system, and then there's a lot of places you can put that data. Okay. First off, we look at some basics like exporting a lookup list to Excel. Okay, so Sage, when I go into customer maintenance and I do a lookup, I can export that lookup to Excel, and then I can run away with all that data and do what I want with it. Okay, as long as I have the rights to export, because that is a setting, especially in the newer Sage 100s, that you can limit who can export to Excel. We have Crystal Reports. If you've been around Sage 100, you're familiar with the word. They give you some pre-built reports. And then we have a designer where we can go in and make custom Crystal reports. Okay, we can train you on making custom Crystal reports. I just will tell you from experience that if you decide you would like to make your own Crystal reports, then go back to step 3, lay out a report you want, and we'll work with you to design that report. Because it is often very hard for us to train someone when they really don't have anything in mind. We will make up things, but it doesn't really apply necessarily to what you need. When you come to us with something you need, you're engaged. You want to see this end result. You learn us doing it, and then you can take it and tweak it. And that's probably the other biggest thing is Crystal Reports is a great tool. It can do some amazing things. It is not just a point-click tool. You do have to do a little work to learn it. I've got a client right now that we're working through it. I recommended a book that they bought off Amazon, and I've spent a couple hours with them going over some of the basics. They're using the book, and they're really training themselves. They're taking the time to do it now and learn it now because they see the value down the road. Okay, too often we'll train someone, then 6 months later they'll come in and go, oh, I'm ready to make a report. Well, you don't remember anything that we've showed you. So really try to plan that out a little bit. Okay, number 4, we have Business Insights Explorer, and I'll show this. This is kind of a dashboard, Excel-ish thing that's in Sage 100. Everybody has this. Okay, you can get in there, you can play with it, you can query data, and you can even export that out to Excel. The Business Insights Explorer's limitation is twofold. One is data size. So depending on what you're using Business Insights Explorer for, it can be very fast or it can be very slow. If you are a company that has 10 years of invoice information and you go into Business Insights Explorer and go to your invoice history information, that's going to take some time to get going. Okay, you just have so much data. It may not be the right tool to analyze invoice information. It may, okay? You can limit it to a current year, but all these things, it still sometimes is not the right tool, okay? Crystal Reports may be a better tool to look at invoice history information. That said, you may need to do some more advanced things when you're working with 10 years worth of data. Okay. We have Sage Intelligence, and it was in 2014 that Sage released this on a functional level. They had had it before that, but it really didn't become a viable product until 2014. And now with the newer 2016, it is a great tool. Rick Huddleston in our office has really been helping a lot of clients implement Sage Intelligence. Okay, it's a great tool for writing your financial reports. Okay, it's replaced FRX. It actually, the report manager, if you actually buy that part from Sage, it actually has the ability to convert FRX report trees into Sage Intelligence. Okay, so if you're an FRX person, boom, you can convert a lot of your reports right into Sage Intelligence, saving you a lot of time. Okay, Sage Intelligence, be proficient with Excel. Okay, because a lot of it's dumping to Excel. They've got some templates. I'll pop through and just show you a template. But you really do need to be proficient in Excel to use it. And that's most people that are in FRX or BizNet or any of those tools, they usually have a very decent Excel proficiency. Okay. And we touch on Sage CRM. Sage CRM has interactive dashboards and reports. And we touch on that as a reporting option because we do have some clients that have really worked on getting the Sage CRM integrated with their Sage 100. And I can show a couple, I'll show a couple things that have dashboards that show year-over-year sales and reports that show them customers who are down year-over-year with the last invoice date, or they can draw on some of the accounting information summated in a way that it's actionable for the sales team, or I've got another one that uses it for collections. Okay, so a lot of different ways we can use CRM to generate reports, and the best thing is Sage CRM being a browser-based tool, you can access it from anywhere outside of the office. Okay. So, like I had mentioned before, your options for report writing and whatnot are not limited to Crystal Reports, Sage Intelligence. There are other tools that can assist us. As I had mentioned, if you get 10 years of invoice history in detail, and you come to us and you say, I want to run a product line sales report broken out by year and month for all time. We can write it in Crystal Reports, you can run it, and you better have a computer off to the side that can sit there and run it for 8 hours, because it's got a lot of lines of data to run through. So before, years ago, that's really what you had to do. Well, now we really don't have to. We've set up different clients using SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, pulling data out of Sage 100, aggregating it, and then sending that to Crystal Reports. I had a client who had a report that literally took 7 hours to run. We got it down to just under 10 minutes using the power of SQL Server to really work the data that they needed. Okay. Power BI is relatively new to the market, and I'm going to show it today a little bit because it's just another way of visually seeing our data. And I want to kind of tie that into getting data out of Sage 100 and quickly getting it into something that is useful for me. Okay. So let's start with this, Sage 100 export from list. This is probably the easiest feature and the most unknown feature. I'm usually often shocked how many people don't know they can do this. And I will show it when we get into the software as well. But I can go into customer maintenance. I can do a lookup. And in the lookup, I have an icon to export to Excel. Your icon may look a little different in mine, right? I have the new UI, so yours may just be an E there, etc. But you can click that button, and whatever you have looked up in this grid, it will export to Excel. Okay. Once I have it in Excel, then it's my choice of what to do with it. Okay. We have pre-built Crystal Reports. I think all of us are familiar with that. I can go into a module, I can go into reports, and I can see a list of pre-built reports. I always make note, sometimes these can be modified some. So if it's missing a piece of data, it may be possible that we can add that data to it. It really depends on the report and how Sage generates the data for the report. Some of these reports, they have an intermediary screen that pops up with all these kinds of options all over it. And then you click preview after making all these selections. Well, those selections, Sage runs some code and they actually build a whole nother table out there, and then the report reads off that table. When we get into those scenarios, we have often found we can't modify that easily. it's much easier for us to just create a custom report, add it to the system that does what you want, instead of trying to mess with Sage's report. Okay. Like I mentioned, we have the Crystal Report Designer. So this is a tool that is very strong. It's an industry standard. It has been around a long time. There's all kinds of YouTube videos and books and all kinds of information out there about Crystal Reports. We can also work with you to create Crystal Reports. Okay. Once again, we just ask you come to us with a report you need so that we can work through it together. It's a great training experience for you. You get that, and you get a report out of it, right? Business Insights Explorer, we'll touch on this. Okay, this will kind of give you a preview of what it looks like. Very powerful tool that can be used for different things. Some people will use it for going in to see what open orders are out there and working with it to kind of get a view of what's going on. It allows people kind of a la carte choose what they want to do themselves. Okay. Sage Intelligence, which I'll just kind of quickly run through one here in a few minutes. Okay, this is the new reporting tool. It's very strong with financials, but it's not limited to financials. You can connect to information with sales and inventory, etc. Okay, it actually can connect to other data sources even, if needed. Okay, so it's Sage's new reporting tool that is now at the point where we are very comfortable recommending it. Okay, kind of giving you a screenshot of an income statement coming through to the ABC company. This is a pre-built, pre-generated one. Sage CRM, okay, so that was the browser, the web-based tool that can integrate with Sage 100. We have interactive dashboards. They can provide loads of information, a lot of alerting, okay, pie charts and graphs and tabled out information, etc. Okay, here was a year-over-year monthly invoice sales trend, and then we actually had a client that we took that and broke it down by salesperson. So when every salesperson came in, they could see their year-over-year performance, okay, see how they're trending. The big thing with that one I would like to touch on is they didn't have to have someone internally now generate all this information for their sales team. Their goal was their sales team to get into CRM and gather what they needed. Okay. Again, customized report, CRM, we took it and then they could generate it out to Excel and work with it as they needed. And the last thing we touched about, and I just want to kind of review the hierarchy here so you understand, is SQL Server can be used with Sage. Sage 100, unless you have premium, sits on a ProvideX database. So we can use SQL Server to pull information out of Sage, and then we can provide that information to other tools. It can be SQL Server reporting services, it can be Excel, it can be Crystal Reports, it can be whatever can consume data from Microsoft SQL Server, a database. Okay? A lot of tools out there that can do this. As an example, we have the reporting services. We have a few clients that use this because it's a web address that they can go to, okay, in their network. Anybody can get in there if they have the right rights through a Windows authentication. It does not consume a Sage 100 license to run reports, and they can go in and run the reports as they need them and query the ERP system live. And then last thing we're going to look at is the Power BI. It's a newer tool, has a lot of potential that Microsoft has released, and we're really looking to harness that. And I've got a client who I'm working with that on currently, is how can we use this tool to really get them some exciting dashboards or exciting information out, okay? And then can we automate? Well, yes, and we talked about that once before, Sage Alerts and Workflow, okay? It's a great tool for automating reports. It's a great tool for automating alerts. Is it the only one? No. Okay, there's another one called Visual Cut, okay? Its purpose is to automate reports, Excel to PDF, and it uses Crystal reports. You design the report in Crystal, it runs them, and then it can create a file or send an email with an Excel or PDF attached of that report. Okay. The difference between the two, and the reason we show the two, is Visual Cut, you can go out there and Google it, it's only $300. It's significantly less than Sage Alerts and Workflow. Okay. That said, it cannot do quite the alerting that Sage Alerts and Workflow can do. It does not know what the data was before. So when I received that email about Mary changing the credit limit, it told me what it was before and what she changed it to. Okay. Visual Cut doesn't maintain that information like that. It doesn't know what it was and what it is. It just knows what it is. Okay. So there's a big difference in those two things. But if your only purpose is, I want to report from my sales manager on a Monday morning that says, hey, here's your sales, an Excel or a PDF, Visual Cut is a great tool. We have a lot of clients that use it. Okay. All right, so let's actually look at some of this stuff. So the first thing I'm going to touch on, go ahead and just minimize that. The first thing I want to touch on is, before I go into Sage 100, is I'm going to actually go into Sage CRM, which is my browser-based tool, and I'm going to just show you some of this information in action that can be put together. Okay. Oh. So I had mentioned that when you log in, there is an interactive dashboard. These dashboards can be set up based on data in the CRM system. So things that we have captured, okay, from within the CRM system, or if we have really worked on integrating our ERP data into our CRM system, here you can see a monthly invoice sales trend, previous year top 25 customers. Okay, so I can see their rank, I can see their sales this year compared to last year. I can really get actionable information. If I'm a sales manager, that's great. If I'm in customer service, I may have to track issues, okay? I may have a completely different dashboard out there, okay? I can have dashboards of information based on the information I've collected, okay? And it is based on my role in the company. Based on my role, I may need to see different pieces of information, okay? So there's one way out there to get data out into something that people can look through. We can also run reports out here, so I can go into reports and I can run a report. Let's just run this one. Let's send it to the screen. So mine has an integration with the orders that have shipped, so anything that's been invoiced, I can see what they are, when it was shipped, etc. Cool feature with reports within Sage CRM is if you make it and you do what they call a hyperlink, you can actually click on like the company name, and Sage CRM actually takes you to their company record. Or you could, in this case, I have the invoice modification, so since I have the invoice number, I can actually click on the invoice and actually see what that invoice was. Okay. So it's just providing information for different members of our organization in a way that they need it. Okay. They could go to PDF, they could export this to Excel, etc. Okay. So this is an option. This is one of them out there that exists. CRM is not limited to just reports. It is a customer relationship management system, so it has a lot of information that can be harnessed. And if you really work on the integration, you can get lots of information out of it regarding the companies and the people that work there, etc. Okay. All right, so let's go into Sage 100 now. And let's talk about the very first thing that was in the slides, going to the customer maintenance screen and pulling customer information out. Some people may want this for a mailing list, etc. Right? How do I get a mailing list out? Easiest way is to come into a screen, click the lookup icon, and you're going to get a grid here. Okay. Now you say, well, that grid doesn't have what I need on it. Well, okay. That's okay. We can click custom in the lower left, and I could say export mailing list. Okay. I don't have to call it export. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. I can see that normally I get the name, the status, the zip code, phone number, and sort field. Well, I don't need the sort field, and I don't really care about the status. But I do care about address line 1, 2, city, state. I already had zip code, so let's go ahead and move zip code down. Okay, so I'd have their customer number, their name, their phone number. Okay, let's slide that to the bottom. So address line 1, 2, city, state, zip. Okay. So I can now say finish. I now have a new view called export mailing list. And if I notice, I have all the address information in it now. Okay. Once I have the information I need, all I have to do is click the little icon to export to Excel. When I click this icon, Sage will talk to Excel and say, hey, he wants to export this into Excel. There it is. There is all my information in Excel. Okay. Once again, from here, we can do a lot of things with it. These lookups exist everywhere. Okay, so if I go into purchase order entry, do a lookup, here's every purchase order I have out there right now, not very many. Okay, I could say, you know what, I only want them where the order type is equal to standard S, find, there they are, export them to Excel. I've now got the information out about the purchase order to Excel. Right, so that's one of the ways we can get data out of Sage 100 into Excel, doing the customer lookups or the purchase order lookups through our lookup screen. Okay, now let's go ahead and look at Business Insights, Explore, History Orders View. So this is Sage Business Insights Explorer. Okay, this is where I can come in and see data in my system live, and then I can work with it. So I could say, you know what, the order date, let's organize them by order date and group them. So now notice that me dragging that header up there, put the order date and grouped it by that. But there's a lot on here that I really don't need for myself. So maybe we start with cleaning that up. So I'm going to right click and go to column settings. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of terms, tax schedule, PO, invoice date. I'll keep order total, deposit, taxable, non-taxable. Let's keep freight so we can actually see, discount so we can see. Okay, so now I've cleaned it up to that. I can now look at this and say, here's all of my active, completed, delete, every single order that's been in my system. Okay, and I could organize it maybe by salesperson, and now I can see here's DWD salespersons, and I could sort it by date. Okay, so I can really work with my data here, but maybe I really want to do a little more to it. I want to really look at it and say, okay, show me by year and month my sales. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my column settings, and I know that if I click on calculated, I can create order month, and bear with me here. I'm going to take a function called month. I'm going to replace this with the order date. Click OK. I've added order month. I'm going to go ahead and add order year. Okay, I'm going to go to functions. I know I want year. And I'm going to take the inside of that and put my order date. Okay, if I click OK, it refreshes, and notice now that I have my orders month and the year. Okay, those are 2 extra columns I just added. So now I could sort it by year. Okay, so now I've got each order grouped by year. I do look at my status here, and I think, well, it's a lot of deleted quote, deleted quote, quote. I don't want those. I actually only want equals completed, oops, not quote, completed, or equals active. I only want stuff that I know is going to work. It's going to come through. So now we've limited our status here. We have it grouped by year. Okay. So now I want to add a total to this year. Okay. So I can right-click in a group footer and say, you know what? Create a summary on order total, create a summary on freight, and create a summary on discount. I now have by year total for each of those columns. What if I wanted to see it by month? Well, I'm going to drag month up here. Okay, so I can see in month 4, 407.40 freight. I can go to month 5, see a total freight discount. We gave out more discounts that month. Okay, so I can use this tool to really analyze high-level information. Okay, and I can come in here and say, save this setting. I can make it public or just make it mine. You know, Chris invoice sales potential. Call it whatever you want. We now have that saved out there so that we can come back into this and pull it back up and it already be formatted like I need. Okay. I can also take the raw data that this is using and export to Excel. So I can go File, Export, Excel. Okay, it took the information and exported it to Excel. Okay, we can see the raw data there. And I'm going to save this for later. So I'm going to hit Save As, Computer. I'm going to put it in a folder. And I'm going to create it and call it Chris Invoice Sales Data. Okay, so I've saved that data that I got from Excel. All right, so this is Sage Business Insights Explorer. Limitations, like we talked about. Well, we're working with the header information, so you can't really go into this and drill into product line sales because product lines are based off of the item information, right? Not just the general invoice information. It is nice that I can come in here and do this, and if I click on the different invoices, I can see information down here about what was on that invoice, okay? Really nice, but I can't get to this information, okay? And that's where we have to use Crystal Reports. We might use SQL Server, Excel. I mean, there's different ways to get that information out to work with it, okay? But Business Insights Explorer really works on the header level, okay? So if you get a purchase order, it's going to look just like this, but it's going to show you purchase order information. And then down here, you'll see what was on the purchase order. All right. So this is Business Insights Explorer. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of views. So I can go into purchase order view, like we were just talking about, and see my purchase orders out there. And I can say, you know what, show me them by vendor. Okay. Now I know I should probably put division up in there too, because it's really, I have divisions turned on in my purchase order. So now by division, by vendor, I can see the purchase orders out there. I can right-click column settings and say, you know, I really don't want to see that. Oh, received. I want to see that because I want to know if it's been received. Freight, sales tax, back order, lost, comments, I don't care. Okay, so I'm basically looking at my PO now, okay, how much it was and how much I've received, how much it was, how much has been invoiced. So right now I can see I've received 5615, and I was only invoiced 1357. It is not balanced right now. Okay. So it is a tool. I could save this, go look at this, give me a quick view of my purchase orders, what's balanced, work with it. I could sort it. Okay, I can limit it, etc. So at some point, you may, if you have the rights, go in here and start looking at the different views and really how can you use them to make your ability to look up information in Sage 100 that much better. Okay. All right, so now we're going to move to showing you a little bit about Sage Intelligence. I want to show you basically how easy it is to get into a basic Sage Intelligence. Like I had mentioned before, Rick Huddleston in our office, he is the Sage Intelligence guru. He probably doesn't like me saying guru, but he is the one that knows all about setting it up and writing reports. Our last user group down in Indianapolis, there was a lady there that he had shown one report to, and she has since ran with it and was really excited and has, I guess, uses it for everything now. So it's definitely something that someone can learn because, as she said, she's not a technological person, but she really did get and grasp how to use Sage Intelligence. For me, for today, I'm just going to click on Report Viewer so we can kind of see some of this in action. Okay, and I want to go ahead and say, why don't you give me a financial trend analysis? When you run reports, you can ask questions, it gathers the data, and then it writes the information out to Excel. Depending on if you're just using the plain report viewer, it may dump them out raw, or if you have somebody in your organization that uses the report manager, it will allow them to design these reports, okay? But you can see it just created a financial trend analysis, okay, for my different accounts. Let's see if I have any information. So there we go, my GL account for miscellaneous, okay? Period by period. The variance, pretty graph, okay? So it is a great tool for financial reporting, and we're learning more and more about how to use it in the other areas as well, okay, to run sales reports, etc. But one of the strengths of it really is getting the data into Excel and then letting someone that understands Excel use it from there, okay? And then you can save that report that they've created in Excel back to the Sage Intelligence, and then they can rerun it over and over again, updating it constantly. Okay. If it's something that you're interested in, then let us know. When Rick gets back from training, he will happily reach out and work with you on getting it set up and making your first report. Okay. Notice I clicked on a field and it has a drill down functionality. Okay, so it drilled down into that posting where it came from, the source journal, etc. Okay, so that is Sage Intelligence reporting. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit of, well, that's great. I can get it to Excel. I can get it into Business Insights Explorer and out to Excel. I can use Sage Intelligence to get data, again, out to Excel. Okay. What other options do I have? Well, one of them being obviously Crystal Reports. Okay, but another one that we wanted to kind of show you today was, just quickly, was a tool that's really new, relatively new to the market. It's called Power BI. When I say new to the market, I should say that it is new in its own standalone product. It used to be considered part of Excel for a while. It is now a standalone Microsoft product, but the benefit to it is I can grab data from many, many sources and integrate them into one dashboard, you might call it. Okay, and it really doesn't take an IT person to do this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open one of my Power BI reports I have out here, my dashboards. And I'm going to go to my blank canvas to start with, because I want to show you that getting that data out of Excel, we can easily pull it into other things to make very nice reports. So I'm going to simply go into Power BI. I'm going to get that Excel file I just generated. There it is. I'm going to click Open. I'm going to grab all the information off that sheet. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start a visualization, grab a sheet, and I'm going to say by year, give me the order total. I'm going to go ahead and drag that up here. Okay, so here I can see sales by year right now. Okay, so that quickly, I've now got a chart. Okay, so now I want to say, okay, within those sales, maybe who was my top customers? Okay, so I'm going to add another, oops, click on that. I'm going to add another visual, and I'm going to say, show me my customer, my bill to name, order total, and I'm going to tell it to sort, oops, highest first. Okay. So now I have this data. I can click on 2016, and now it shows me my top customers in 2016. I go to 15. I can see 15, 14, 13, and 2010. Okay. I could go so far as, you know what, I want to see my sales by salesperson. Who's my top salesperson during this time as well, percentage-wise? So I'm going to go salesperson, order total. Okay, so now I can see out here my salespeople. Okay, overall. So now if I click 2016, DWD is the only one that's really making sales, and here's the customers that are our top customers. 14, 2010. Okay, I'm using the Excel data that I was provided to create this quickly information I may need. Okay, I can publish this up to the Power BI's website, and then other individuals in my company that have Power BI can actually log into it either on a mobile device, such as a phone, or anywhere. They can go to it and they can actually look at it and they can work with it on the website. You can come into it and say, on the website, and say, you know what, I want to add a new visual to it. Okay, and in that visual, I want to break apart the freight amount by year. Okay, so then I can click on a year and see how much freight was in that year. But I can do that on the web after the person publishes it. Because when it publishes it, it actually takes the data that it's used to generate this, puts it up there with it so I can work with it. Now to show you other things that can be beneficial, I have a couple tabs here. Okay, item sales. So I use SQL Server to refresh and get information out of Sage 100 to create my dashboard. So here it is, year after year, our sales going up. I can click on that year. I can see which product lines made up our sales that year. I can see which item code shipped the most, which item code had the highest gross profit, and what my salespersons, who sold what at that time. I can see 16. Notice all my information is changing. So when I come into the report, I can refresh the data, and it will go out and pull that data in. And you think, well, that's going to take a long time to run, right? It really does not take if you think of Crystal Reports and you have a report that generates all these different pieces of data out there, the amount of time it takes this dashboard to refresh before I publish it is minuscule, okay? I know that this piece of the dashboard right now is reading it through my SQL Server database at the warehouse, and it's roughly at 2 million rows right now. It's taking all this information and putting it into this report that I know that I can publish up to the internet, and people can work with it just as fast as I have been here on the screen with you. And they can make their own gadgets and kind of break the information apart, okay? So it is a very powerful tool to take data out of our accounting system and put it into something that we could show anywhere in the world. We can access it anywhere in the world. I'm doing this with the free version of this. You could do this with the purchase version. It sounds, we believe right now that the pro version, which I believe is now $10 a month, will actually let you connect your internet account actually down to the data in like a SQL server that's reading out of your accounting system. So you could even work with it right there. Okay, so in that time, I just refreshed everything in this report, these 3 different gadgets or dashboard pieces. I always show this one last. This was what we really were working on at the time. What really drove us here was a penetration map, a map to show where do we ship to. So I used the zip code and sales information, and I can actually look into the different areas and see sales, right? So I can see a lot of my sales are clustered right in here, and I can zoom out a little bit. I can tell I'm very strong in this area, okay? I'm not so far out here. Now, that may be my goal. My goal may not be to go all the way out to Des Moines, right? I may really focus on things around me, big cities. So here I can see I'm zooming in on Columbus, and I can see where I've shipped to and the sales in that area, okay? All using the data that I just refreshed and pulled in. Okay, so very powerful tool. And we're really learning to harness it now. And it all just requires, I mean, you could really start with some basics and just get the data out with Excel about the invoices, and you can set up these kinds of gadgets with just that information. Okay. When you start getting into the item sales and down to the item level, you may need a little assistance there. And it may be we write a crystal that dumps it all to Excel, and then your Power BI pulls that Excel in to refresh and shows you all the information. You click publish so that it goes up, okay? And then somebody at home logs in that night, and they can play with the data and look at the charts and see how we're doing for the week, for the month, etc. Okay, it's a very powerful tool. All right, so that was everything I wanted to cover today. Were there any questions about what we just talked about? I've been asked to remind you about CPE. You can email Shannon. She's the one that sent out the emails the other day, and request CPE information, and she will provide that. If you have any questions, please feel free to type that in the chat box, etc. Okay. Mary, I'm not seeing it. Oh, hang on. Okay, well, We don't have any additional questions. If you do at any point, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to go over all the things we covered, just if you have questions about any certain areas, etc. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to spend it with us today. We hope you learned something or got some ideas that you can work with. And everyone have a great week. Oh, hang on, someone has a question.
Chris, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. Question out there has come in. Will we ever get company codes as an available field in Visual Integrator? And I unfortunately am not sure of that. And I don't know, Chris, do you know that answer?
So if we're talking about exporting through Visual Integrator with the company code, I do not believe that would be tied in through any specific table because it's based on the company code you're in. So the first thing I would think to do is you may pop up a window. So Visual Integrator has an option that someone can actually enter information when you go to run the job. So you could ask for the company code that they're running it on, then let it export. It will export the company code into the file that they typed in. So that would be, I think, my workaround for that, so that it gets into the file for you. Okay. Any other questions? I mean, it really doesn't have to be just about what we talked about. Mary and I are here to answer any other questions you may have like that one.
I'd also like to thank everybody for joining us this morning. We appreciate that you were willing to take the time. If you all have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. And otherwise, we'll go ahead and bid you all a great rest of the day.
All right.